The moment she stepped into the classroom, the girl brought the entire room to a dead silence. From today on, only my rules will run this place. At the time, no one realized that this quest for justice would eventually uncover a secret capable of shaking the very foundation of her own team. Han Rim has joined the Student Protection Task Force, and on her very first day, she proved that nothing but discipline will be tolerated in this school anymore. After showing the most powerful bully exactly where they stand in front of everyone, she is now collecting students' phones and implementing new rules one by one. Students who ran the school by their own whims until yesterday are now silently obeying her every word. No arguments, no questions, just silence. Meanwhile, Hoojin goes straight to the principal's office. He explicitly demands that teachers submit written reports of every serious instance of misconduct so that strict action can be taken. The principal attempts to defend the students, claiming they aren't that bad, but one line from Hoojin silences him. The day adults start fearing children is the day society begins to crumble. The principal has no answer to that. Moments later, teachers are sitting at their desks quietly writing down complaints, including names that no one had dared to mention until now. Slowly, the buzz about this change begins to spread outside the school walls. In parents' WhatsApp groups, one sentiment echoes. Finally, someone has taken control of a school that had been spiraling out of control for months. But behind every compliment lies a question. Who exactly is this task force, and what is their real agenda? The next morning, when Han Rim arrives at the classroom, she finds it in complete disarray. Paper, trash, and broken benches, as if someone had intentionally created chaos. Without a word, she puts all the students to work cleaning up while she supervises them. With the sound of every broom, order begins to return to the classroom. Later, she tells Hoojin something that has been weighing on her. The teachers look incredibly stressed. She fears that the angry parents and public criticism might break their spirit entirely. Hoojin calmly replies, "Don't worry, I will talk to them myself. Until then, keep an eye on the students' social media accounts." That evening, Hoojin starts digging into the students' online activities, while Han Rim begins gathering photos and evidence related to their misconduct. The next morning, Han Rim arrives at school carrying a thick file filled with evidence. She clearly informs the students that they have committed serious violations and will face strict punishment soon. But in the midst of this, something happens that changes the course of the entire story. Teacher Young discovers that students have secretly leaked her private photos on the internet. The humiliation is so profound that she loses her ability to sleep at night. She eventually contemplates quitting the teaching profession. Her colleagues try to reason with her, but her spirit has been completely shattered. The next day, Hoojin goes to visit her himself. Crying, Teacher Young explains that everyone has started seeing her as a bad person. In response, Hoojin shares something he has never told anyone before. His own wife was a teacher, a kind and dedicated teacher who lost her life due to school violence. For the first time, a pain is evident in his voice, a pain he had never let anyone see until now. Then he shows Teacher Young something that completely contradicts her perspective. Amidst a flood of hateful messages, some students had secretly written letters in her support. As Teacher Young reads those lines, for the first time in weeks, hope returns to her eyes. The next day, Teacher Young returns to class with renewed confidence. She begins to discipline the students who don't listen, especially Yeri, who is considered the most troublesome student in the school. One day, in the middle of class, when Yeri tries to interrupt her as usual, Teacher Young, for the first time, stops her while looking her straight in the eye without fear. The entire class watches the scene in astonishment. But Yeri isn't one to give up so easily. As soon as class ends, she prepares to post another hateful message against Teacher Young, this time with even more dangerous intent. For a moment, everything in the school seems peaceful, as if the storm has passed. But this calm isn't meant to last. One by one, all the posts disappear from her account on their own, as if an invisible hand is erasing everything from behind the curtain. A panicked Yeri cannot understand what is happening or whose hand is behind it. Fear and anger flare up inside her simultaneously, and then, without a second thought, a furious Yeri begins to head straight toward Teacher Young in an uncontrollable and dangerous state, as if anything could happen at any moment. The task force members intervene just in time, grabbing the enraged Yeri before she can reach Teacher Young. She pays a heavy price for her actions, facing severe disciplinary punishment. Once again, silence and discipline return to the school hallways. A few days later, the Minister of Education himself appears before the cameras, proudly declaring, "The violent female gang that was destroying Soon Girls School has now become history. The school is safe, and teachers can now teach without fear." Hoojin's team has won another mission. However, this victory offers little time for celebration. Within hours, the minister's political opponents hold their own press conference, and this time, their accusations shake the very foundation of the story. They claim that the Student Protection Task Force was never created for the welfare of the students. According to them, the minister is simply using the entire system to settle a score for the death of his daughter, who was killed by school bullies. Then, they reveal a secret no one expected. Hoojin's own wife was also a victim of school violence. As the news spreads, debates erupt on TV channels. Overnight, this issue becomes the biggest topic of discussion across the entire country. Hearing this, the color drains from Han Rim's face. The mission she had been performing with all her heart, believing it to be just, is suddenly cast under a shadow of doubt. Is their entire team acting not for justice, but out of someone's personal agony and fire for revenge? This question refuses to leave her mind. But there is no time to stop. The minister and his team soon call their next meeting, and this time, the target is the country's most prestigious international language school. Just then, something happens there that shakes the entire campus. A student raises a hand against their own teacher. Upon receiving the news, Hoojin and his team are immediately dispatched to the scene. Upon arriving at the school, the team hesitates for a moment, struck by its massive campus and stellar reputation. The CEO tells Han Rim the full story of the institution, and in this conversation, one name comes up repeatedly: Teacher Chon, the school's most respected teacher, whose former students are now studying at the country's top universities. Everyone speaks his name as if he were the identity of the school itself. Hoojin goes straight to meet the teacher who was attacked and calmly asks why the student became so uncontrollable. The teacher shares his side of the story with great patience, and in the middle of it, Hoojin asks him to repeat a specific line, the same line he has always told his students: always believe in your talent and your skills. As the teacher repeats the line, Hoojin smiles and applauds him, as if this teacher's philosophy has truly touched him deeply. At the same time, Han Rim goes to meet the boy who attacked the teacher. The boy is furious and remains silent to every question. Finally, he says only this: even if I tell the truth, no one will believe me. Give me whatever punishment you want. Arrest me if you must. I don't care. Han Rim tries her best to calm him down, but he refuses to speak again. The investigation continues. Another student mentions that Teacher Chon is a role model who works day and night for every one of his students. The CEO adds an interesting detail. The boy who attacked the teacher is actually considered one of the school's top-ranked students. Hearing this, Han Rim's doubts deepen. Why would a brilliant student suddenly raise a hand against his most respected teacher? When she confronts the boy again with stern questions, his resistance finally breaks, and the truth that is about to spill from his lips will not just change the course of this case, but the direction of the entire investigation. Under pressure, Hyeon finally opens up, and the story that emerges is as painful as it is shocking. Her family owned a restaurant, a small business, but their entire life depended on it. One day, Teacher Chon publicly accused them of running an illegal business. That was enough. Almost overnight, customers stopped coming, the restaurant closed, and the entire family was left penniless. It became impossible for Hyeon to even pay her school fees. Somehow, her parents arranged for a private tutor, but he soon quit as well, and Hyeon claims that Teacher Chon had pressured him into stopping the lessons. After all this, Hyeon was left with no path and no support. Hoojin listens, and a familiar silence settles over his face, a silence born of old, deep-seated pain. However, instead of confronting Teacher Chon directly, he first sends Sejong to the private academy where Hyeon used to study. When Sejong arrives, he finds the missing link that exposes the true picture. There was a secret connection between Teacher Chon and that academy, and it was more than just a passing acquaintance. Armed with new evidence, Hoojin stands face to face with Teacher Chon. He throws the truth at him point blank: how he secretly manipulates student rankings. He takes money from wealthy families to get their children top scores, while intentionally pushing those without money down the ranks. The man the entire school looked up to with respect turns out to be the biggest fraud of all. Upon hearing this, Teacher Chon turns red with rage and walks away without answering. But his game isn't over yet. That same night, he secretly meets with a wealthy parent who refuses to accept her daughter's poor grades. Teacher Chon promises her with absolute certainty, "Don't worry, your daughter will pass with stellar marks." Meanwhile, that question still lingers in Han Rim's mind. Should she trust Hoojin or not? Sejong advises her, "Have faith just a little longer." But before this can progress, news arrives from outside that flips the entire situation. Police cars pull up outside the school. Uniformed officers enter. Hoojin is taken into custody. Many members of the task force are arrested, and the biggest shock of all, the education minister himself is handcuffed. The charges, abuse of power, and using the task force for personal vendettas. Overnight, the news dominates every TV screen in the country. That same night, before being taken to jail, the minister gives one final order to Sejong. The investigation must not stop. He is the only one left free in the team, and he must see the mission through. Time passes, and exam day arrives. Teacher Chon approaches the student to whom he had given the leaked papers and says softly, "Just do well, everything else will be fine." The student enters the exam hall with complete confidence. In court, prosecutors hit the minister with one charge after another. There is nothing to say in his defense. The situation looks dire. But then, something happens in the exam hall that changes everything. Teacher Chon suddenly receives news. The exam papers have been changed. He runs toward the classroom, desperate to stop the test, but it is already too late. Hoojin is standing at the door of the exam hall, calm, composed, and absolutely fearless. He quietly explains that the task force had already swapped the papers. The entire operation had been running from behind the curtain, and now it is complete. What happens next is something the walls of this school will always remember. All of Teacher Chon's secret deals, recordings of conversations with wealthy parents, manipulated rankings, proof after proof begins to surface. The whole school learns that the man they considered an ideal teacher until yesterday had actually been milking the system for his own gain for years. The student who had received the leaked paper is consumed by shame and tries to destroy the evidence, but there is nothing left to erase. Hoojin approaches Hyeon. Looking into her eyes, he says, "You were right from the beginning." For the first time, someone had truly acknowledged the injustice she faced. That one sentence becomes a greater remedy for Hyeon than all the pain of the previous months. In court, the minister responds to the allegations one by one, and then he turns, beginning to expose the names of all the powerful people who had nurtured this corruption. Politicians, wealthy parents, influential figures, no one is spared. Finally, he states clearly, "No matter how powerful you are, we will find you. There is no place left to hide." Teacher Chon, who was once called the pride of the school, is arrested on charges of corruption, fraud, and betraying the very students he was meant to guide. Justice prevails, and another school is purged of the poison that was growing under the mask of education. Two missions have been completed, justice has been served, and the task force has gained immense prestige once again. But the next story isn't about a school gang or a corrupt teacher. It is about a woman who is a teacher herself and who has been so shattered by the weight of the system that she can no longer find a reason to live. At Hajung Elementary School, there is a teacher named Choi John. She appears calm on the surface, but is completely broken inside. One night, she writes a letter to her mother. Every word carries the shadow of a final goodbye. As soon as she finishes the letter, she attempts to take her own life. At that very moment, Han Rim arrives and saves her just in time. Han Rim tells her that she works with the ERPB and that their organization is running a psychological support workshop for elementary school teachers. Choi is invited to join, and this time she doesn't refuse. In the workshop, she is told that for the sake of her mental health recovery, she will be given some time off from teaching so she can focus on herself. Later, it is revealed that this all began with Choi's mother. She had gone to the ERPB office herself, sat before Hoojin, and pleaded through tears, "My daughter is broken. Please save her." That single desperate voice of a mother had spurred the entire team into action. Han Rim and Bong sit down with Choi to talk. They explain that her mother has told them everything, and now she must seek help from a professional counselor. They also inform her that a substitute teacher has already been appointed for her class. Upon hearing this, an old pain returns to Choi's face. She fears that the new teacher will suffer exactly what she went through. Han Rim gently places a hand on her shoulder and says, "Don't worry." The next day, when the new substitute teacher steps into the classroom, the staff is stunned. It is none other than Hoojin himself. Upon reaching that class of young children, Hoojin realizes that this job is far more difficult than he had imagined. The children are shouting, running around, and refuse to listen to anyone. One child asks him to take them to the restroom. Another insists on doing something else, and within moments, the entire class descends into chaos. There comes a moment when, amidst the uncontrollable environment, Hoojin accidentally raises his voice at a child. The child begins to cry. Hoojin immediately realizes his mistake and starts playing with him to calm him down. As soon as the other children see this, they all line up. They want to play too, and only with Hoojin. By the time the day ends, he is completely exhausted. That night, returning home, he sits in silence. He takes out the photos of his late wife kept on the table. He looks at each one, and the memories draw him back to the time when his wife used to be a teacher herself. And then, the story goes back in time. It was Choi John's first day. She had entered her new classroom with a smile, asked every child for their name, and warmly welcomed every parent. There was a shy boy in the class named Eugene, who suddenly stood up. Choi gently asked him to sit down. That was enough. After school, Eugene's mother somehow obtained Choi's number. A message arrived at night. When you asked Eugene to sit, your tone was very harsh. Be careful next time. Choi apologized immediately. But this was only the beginning. The next day, when Eugene cried during a class activity, another message arrived. Do not question my child in front of everyone. Slowly, the messages began to arrive daily, sometimes regarding where he sat in class, sometimes about homework, and sometimes about his behavior with other children. And one day, Eugene's mother said something that would chill any teacher to the bone. Even if my son is wrong, you must always take his side. When Choi's phone rang, her breath would hitch. Going out with friends stopped. Sleep vanished at night. And one day, Eugene's mother objected to her Instagram photo, a completely ordinary picture with nothing wrong in it. Choi was shocked. She had never even told that woman about her account. When she went to the school administration, the principal blamed her instead. Change your Instagram, or better yet, delete your social media entirely. Choi returned home crying and deleted her account forever that same night. She wrote in her diary, "When I stop teaching one day, I will start again." Yet, despite being broken, she arrived at school first the next morning. She decorated the class, added colorful lights, and built a small play area for the children. Slowly, Eugene began to open up, speak, and smile. But one day, while playing, Eugene hit another child with a toy. Choi wanted to stop him, but the mother's voice echoed in her mind. Always take his side. Caught between two responsibilities, she paused for a few moments and then gently made Eugene apologize. That one decision was about to deepen her suffering even further. The next day, both children's mothers are called to the school. As soon as Eugene's mother finds out that her son was made to apologize, she flies into a rage. Eugene had initiated the fight. Eugene had hurt the other child, but it makes no difference to his mother. She unleashes all her anger on Choi, screaming at the top of her lungs and even arguing with Seo-jun's mother. Within moments, a simple meeting turns into a chaotic scene. But Eugene's mother's anger does not cool down even after leaving the school. Now she starts calling, repeatedly, sometimes with threats, sometimes with insults, sometimes creating so much psychological pressure that it becomes hard to breathe. Meanwhile, Seo-jun's mother also refuses to stop blaming Choi. Caught between two furious parents, Choi loses her sleep. Day or night, the phone keeps ringing, and her mind is filled with constant anxiety. And then things go too far. Eugene's parents show up at her home. Eugene's mother explicitly threatens her. If necessary, I will drag your husband into this mess too. The next day, Eugene's father storms directly into the classroom, roughly pulling the child around in his anger, and his terrifying behavior makes several children cry. Then comes the news that breaks the last bit of courage Choi has left. An official complaint has been filed against her. Eugene's mother accuses the teacher of causing psychological harm to her child. A summons arrives from the police station. Rumors spread on social media that an elementary school teacher mistreated a young child. One by one, parents begin pulling their children out of her class. The classroom that was once buzzing with colorful lights and children's laughter is now empty and desolate. It was under the weight of this agony that Choi had reached the spot from which Han Rim had pulled her back that night. Meanwhile, the ERPB team had already been gathering every piece of evidence. Now, it was time to settle the score. Hoojin, who now visits the classroom that was once Choi's every day, sees Eugen's mother come in one day and berate the class. He realizes that this woman will not stop until she feels the same pain she inflicted on others. He decides to use her own weapons against her. Hoojin starts calling her just like she used to call Choi, repeatedly during the day and late at night. Every time it is about Eugen's homework, his class activities, or a barrage of small nagging questions. Slowly, Eugen's mother begins to feel the same restlessness she had forced upon Choi, and when she gets fed up and comes to school to tell Hoojin to stop, he just smiles calmly. But Hoojin's game doesn't end there. One day, he goes to Eugen's father's office. He falls to his knees in front of everyone, begging for forgiveness in a dramatic fashion, crying and asking them not to let him lose his job. Everyone present is left speechless. Upon returning home, all of Eugen's father's anger explodes onto his wife. The same atmosphere starts to form in their home that they had created in Choi's life. The next morning, when Eugen's mother goes to the school office with another complaint, the staff flatly refuses to listen to her. If she has a complaint, she should contact the ERPB directly. In a fit of rage, she storms into the classroom and drags her son out. As soon as this happens, Hoojin files a report against her. Forcibly dragging a child out of class falls under child abuse. As the news spreads, other parents begin to criticize her behavior as well. Distressed, she tries to call Choi. There is no answer. Finally, she goes directly to Choi's house. The door opens and Hoojin is standing there. For the first time, she realizes she is not facing a weak person, but someone who is one step ahead of her. A few days later, Eugen himself expresses a desire to meet Ms. Choi. They meet, and what he says brings tears to the eyes of everyone in the room. He says in a soft voice, "I am very sad that my mother did this to you. Sometimes I feel like she hates me." Choi gently pulls him close and explains that his mother loves him very much, even if some of her decisions caused a lot of pain. Watching all of this from the window, something inside Mrs. Lee, Eugen's mother, breaks. For the first time, she understands that she didn't just hurt a teacher, but also deeply wounded her own son. Both parents are presented in court. Every threat made against Choi, every false accusation, every instance of mental torture, every piece of evidence is presented before the judge. Both are punished, and finally, Choi's name is completely cleared. In a press conference, the education minister explains the necessity of the ERPB. If any teacher is falling victim to abuse or injustice in any school, the organization stands with them. Ms. Choi returns to her classroom one day. The same children, the same room, the same faces whose memory had perhaps tethered her to life. Smiling, she begins to teach. That nightmare is now completely over. That night, Hoojin flips through the pages of his wife's diary. Every line contains her agony, her final dream of finding justice. And there is one face, the student who claimed they respected her so much, who was actually the one most responsible for her pain. The diary closes. An old fire burns once again in Hoojin's eyes. This story is not over yet.